This worksheet's honestly the stupidest thing ever. Half the stuff isn't in AMSCO or by the people. It's like the 1810s was the most boring time period ever. Whoa, wait, who are you?
Oh, pardon me, my lady. I'm William Henry Harrison.
William Henry Harrison? How?
Yes, it is I, William Henry Harrison, governor and leader of the American forces in the Battle of Tippecanoe.
Oh yeah, the Battle of Tippecanoe. Did that start because someone tipped a canoe?
What? Have you not heard of the famous battle that took place November 11th, 1811?
American forces fought against the Native American forces led by none other than Tecumseh. While the battle was fought because of territorial disputes, the British were to blame. They gifted the Native Americans with ammunition and supplies, which only worsened our relations with them.
Not to mention, British interference didn't help the natives. They lost anyway.
Yes, it's me, you American filth.
Ooh, money. Just my lucky day. Excuse me, sir. Is this yours?
No, it's the bank's. See, I'm Thomas Tucker. I'm the Treasurer of the United States during, 1811. But you see, it was very important in 1811 because the first bank that Alexander Hamilton chartered in 1791 expired in 1811. The thing is that the bank is so needed to keep the economy stable, but Madison and the rest of the Democratic Republicans don't think it's needed. We can only hope that Madison will see the usefulness of this bank. Well, I have to go. Being the Treasurer of the United States, a lot of work. Bye.
Oh, geez, there's more of you? Who are you?
Well, I'm President Madison. The president who defeated the British, won the War of 1812, and gave way for the era of good feelings.
Oh, the War of 1812! My history teacher mentioned that. Is that important or something?
It's arguably the most important event of the 1810s. It was caused by British violation of American Neutrality Sea Acts and also competition on the western frontier.
Both the British and the French possessed hostility towards each other, so their concentration was focused more on each other than us here in America. Therefore, the two nations had no interest in respecting American neutral rights at sea. However, the British offenses were considered worse because of the Navy's acts of impressing American soldiers. Americans wanted more land. More specifically, they wanted British Canada and Spanish Florida from the British and Native American and Spanish allies. Through their efforts to earn these lands, pesky Native American rebellions led by Tecumseh became more of an issue as they became stronger and more frequent the further we pushed onward. The British provided aid to the savages and so therefore were to blame for the bigger impact the rebellions had. While these reasons both provided a means for the war, all America needed now was for people to get excited about warfare. Hence, the War Hawks were created. They were a ground of young and motivated Democratic Republicans who argued that the only way to defend American honor, gain Canada, and destroy Native American resistances was to go to war with Britain.
And they convinced Americans to go to war, right? That's the War of 1812.
They convinced some Americans, like the southern and western states, to go to war, while the New England states voted against it. Despite their efforts, the War of 1812 began in, 1812. The war was a bloody one, in which there was a lot of important battles. The invasion of Canada, for example, in which America burned British government buildings. Meanwhile, in many of the naval battles, Americans possessed many victories because of their superior shipbuilding, valorous deeds that increased nationalism and motivation for profit. It was during one of these battles on Lake Erie in 1814 that Tecumseh was killed.
Really?
Unfortunately, yes. However, the war continued on, and the Americans suffered great losses as well. During the Chesapeake Campaign, the British sent troops to the capital and burned down our nation's glorious White House. However, the American soldier Francis Scott Key wrote our nation's national anthem in 1814 during the battle at Baltimore that followed immediately afterwards, so I do suppose something great came from that terrible event.
And it all ended with the Treaty of Ghent, right? I think I remember my history teacher saying something about that.
By 1814, the British were trying to maintain peace in Europe with the French. The Americans, on the other hand, recognized they would be unable to win a decisive victory. Americans traveled to Ghent, Belgium, to discuss the treaty that would be enacted Christmas Eve, 1814, that ended the war and returned all conquered territory to its pre-war claimants and recognized the Canadian-American border. All was returned to the way it was before the War of 1812.
Wow, you weren't kidding when you said the war was important. I never realized its significance. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure, miss. I've been glad to teach you something about history, but there's still so much you don't know.
Secret Journal of the Hartford Convention.
Oh yeah, that was a convention that took place during my presidency, in America. Well, it lasted from December 15th, 1814 to January 15th, 1815 in Hartford, Connecticut, to be exact.
What'd they do with the Hartford Convention?
Well, frankly, I'm glad you asked.
The Hartford Convention was called after New England states threatened to secede with the end of the War of 1812 due to their bitter feelings towards both the war and the Democratic-Republican government. It was at that time that radical Federalists in New England urged for an amendment to the Constitution allowing for a vote on secession, causing a convention to be called to Connecticut in 1814.
Oh, wow. Just because of that?
Ultimately, no. It was voted against and therefore rejected. However, the New England Radical Federalists adopted several different proposals.
Like 2/3 vote from both houses for any future declaration of war?
Indeed, young lady. Perhaps you do know your American history better than I thought. Well, good luck on your studies.
Oh, geez. I hope this isn't a real dagger.
Well, of course it's a real dagger. This fought off many Brits in its time.
Isn't that true for all old weapons?
Well, this one is special. It played a very important role in the Battle of New Orleans, which is a very, very important battle of the War of 1812. The battle was fought from January 8th to January 18th, 1815, just 15 days after the conclusion of the Hartford Convention.
Yes, the treaty was signed without my knowledge, so the battle raged on, ending up being one of the most crucial and one-sided battles of the war, with American soldiers winning easily. Despite that, it provided a boost to popularity that would allow myself to later become president. Think about the big picture, darling. Plus, it would give our country enough nationalism to be able to protect its shores with pride. Haven't you ever heard of the Monroe Doctrine?
It sounds familiar.
Well, the answer to your question is simple, but it isn't my explanation to give. This, however, will lead you in the right direction. It's been a pleasure, miss.
Wait, what does this mean?
Excuse me, miss. Can you tell me where the White House is?
The White House is a ways away from here, to be honest. Who are you?
Oh, why? I'm glad you asked. My name is President James Monroe. I created the Monroe Doctrine, helped establish the Missouri Compromise, and ushered in an era of good feelings.
Era of good feelings? What's that? I must have skipped that chapter of AMSCO.
Well, allow me to explain.
Only one of the best instances of nationalism in history. After the War of 1812, the country was suddenly filled with a sense of optimism and pride, despite the current conflict over tariffs, the National Bank, internal improvements, public land sales, and sectionalism over slavery. It actually ended up lasting from 1816 all the way until the Panic of 1819. Not only did this mark an important turning point in America's positivity, but it was also a huge win for my political party, the Democratic Republicans. While we did decide to keep a few Federalist law and policies, a majority would be changed, and the Federalist Party would eventually fade into oblivion.
Wow, Liberty Pride could have such a large impact.
Ah, yes. Good times.
Wait, I need to know more. You made the Monroe Doctrine, right?
Ah, yes. One of my greatest accomplishments. It made America a foreign power and got Europe out of the country, ridding us of those horrid Brits. Ah, good times. Why, hello there, young lady. I couldn't help but notice you were studying the American colonization system. Do you know the relation of the Liberty Bell to that organization?
No.
The Liberty Bell represents the nationalism and the many freedoms we possess in this beautiful country. Similar to this organization, although they're from different time periods. Think of it as synthesis. The Liberty Bell's freedom and nationalism and senses of liberty align perfectly with the American colonization system. Do you know the founders of that organization by any chance?
Maybe. George Washington is one of them, right?
Why, the first president of the United States died long before the American Colonization Society was established in 1816. I founded the organization, along with 3 others, of course.
And who are you?
Hi, I'm Henry Clay. Clearly you haven't been keeping up on your studies, have you? Allow me to help you learn something about the American colonization system.
The American Colonization Society was an organization that bought land in Africa and then paid to send free African Americans there. And it was a way to get them back to their country. A gift, almost.
Wow, that sounds lovely. How nice of them to do that.
Can I let you in on a little secret, darling? It wasn't. In fact, the society was founded as a way to get rid of African Americans. Many of these people didn't even want to go back to Africa. They were forced.
What? That's awful, but I don't get it. Why wouldn't they want African Americans in the country? Isn't it something like the more the merrier?
Sadly, no. I wish more people thought like you, but immigration into the country was increasing more, so America as a whole became more aggressive toward other races.
Oh, that's awful. I never would have guessed. That's interesting, though.
You know what's even more interesting? My American system. It greatly improved the country, and it made America great again.
First, we would have internal improvements. Canals and roads are paving the way for the future. They would offer more opportunities to trade with the West and faster travel to the new lands that were won in the War of 1812. But unfortunately, Madison, who was president at the time, didn't want the Federalist government to pay for the improvements, so the state governments had to pay. And the next part, protective tariffs. These tariffs will boost America's economy to heights we've never seen them before. Americans buying American products. Isn't it a beautiful sight?
The Bank of America, the best part of my plan.
The bank, part of your plan. I do recall that I was the one who started the Second Bank of America.
You may be right, but I'm the one who knew it would stabilize the economy.
Common knowledge, Clay. Even the most potent enemies such as I could see that. That's why I recharted the bank in 1816.
Are you saying you did more to help the bank than I did?
Maybe I am.
Go.
Who knew dead people could be so angry? Nothing to know. You're back.
Yeah, well, you see, young lady, the thing is,
What's wrong?
I told you about the great and prosperous years of my presidency, but time has passed. The Panic of 1819 is upon us. It haunts me every day.
Caused by over-speculation, as well as those god-awful Brits showing a lack of interest in our goods, the economy crashed. Large amounts of people were left starving in the streets without jobs, unable to feed or clothe themselves.
Did the radical Federalists get what they wanted?
Well, a lot of it was due to the mismanagement of the Second American Bank.
But don't tell Clay I told you that. Hey, I heard that! Oh, I'll go calm him down. He's really sensitive sometimes. And good luck on that project of yours. Why, the first president of the United States long before the American... What? Why, the first president of the United States died long before the American...
Connor.
Oh, you're gonna need to go over there. I'm not okay, wait. I'm not even making an ugly face, it's just my face!
And also conflicts on the western frontier.